Captain Do-hyun Kim stood at the viewing window of Earth's first deep space diplomatic vessel, the ESS Peace. The massive space station of the Galactic Council floated before them, its silver spires stretching out like crystal flowers in space. After 50 years of watching alien ships come and go from Earth's solar system, humanity was finally getting its chance to join the galactic community. "Captain, we're receiving docking instructions," Lieutenant Jae-yun Park said from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel, guiding their ship toward the designated bay. As the cultural specialist of the mission, she had spent months studying the limited information they had about the various alien species they would meet. Do-hyun took a deep breath. "This is the moment we've been preparing for. Remember, everyone, we represent all of Earth today." The docking went smoothly, but the welcome they received was cold. The Aetherian greeting party, tall beings with silvery skin and flowing robes, barely looked at them as they stepped onto the station. Their guide, a junior diplomatic officer, spoke to them, as if talking to children. "Please try not to touch anything," the Aetherian said slowly, overpronouncing each word. "Many of our systems are very advanced. We wouldn't want any accidents." Jae-yun noticed Do-hyun's jaw tighten, but he kept his diplomatic smile. They walked through massive halls filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Some looked almost human, while others were as different as clouds are from stones. Most barely glanced at the human delegation. Those who did often whispered to each other and smiled in ways that didn't seem friendly. The main reception hall was bigger than any room on Earth. The ceiling seemed to disappear into the stars themselves. Floating platforms carried alien diplomats between different levels, while holographic displays showed images of distant worlds and strange symbols. "The human delegation may wait here," their guide said, pointing to a small area near the entrance. "The High Council will see you when they have time." With that, the Aetherian floated away on a gravity platform, not waiting for their response. "They're treating us like we're primitives," Officer Taiwan Lee muttered, his security training making him notice how they'd been placed in a corner, away from the important discussions. Jae-yun watched the various species interact. Despite the impressive technology and grand display of unity, she noticed things others might miss. The way certain species wouldn't look at each other. How some groups kept their distance from others. The forced smiles and stiff greetings. Under all the advanced technology and sophisticated appearances, politics hadn't changed much from Earth. A small group approached them, aliens with features that reminded Jae-yun of deep-sea creatures, their skin shifting colors like the surface of a soap bubble. Their leader bowed in a way that seemed carefully practiced. "I am Ambassador Kyung Mei-cho of the Nexeri," she said in perfect English. "We were like you once, new to the council. Not all here remember what that feels like." Her outer membrane rippled with warm colors. Some species think advanced technology makes them superior. They forget that civilization means more than just machines. Before they could respond, a commotion spread through the hall. The Aetherian High Council was arriving. The floating platforms arranged themselves into a pattern that looked like a blooming flower, with the High Council members descending in the center. "The humans will step forward," one of them announced. His voice carried easily through the massive space without seeming to be amplified. Do-hyun straightened his uniform and led his team forward. As they walked to the center of the hall, Jae-yun noticed how the other species moved away, creating a clear path. It wasn't respect that made them step aside. It was the kind of distance people put between themselves and something they'd rather not touch. The lead council member looked down at them from his floating platform. His silver skin seemed to glow with its own light, and his eyes were pools of swirling colors. When he spoke, his tone made it clear he was doing them a great favor by merely acknowledging their existence. "So, Earth wishes to join the Galactic Council." He paused, looking them over like a teacher might look at a child's messy artwork. "We have reviewed your application. While your species is remarkably primitive in many ways, we believe observing more advanced civilizations might help you overcome your savage nature. Do-hyun kept his face carefully neutral, though Jae-yun could see the muscle in his jaw working. They had come seeking friendship among the stars. Instead, they were being treated like animals who had learned an amusing trick. 3 months had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Council as a probationary member. Security Officer Tadwan Lee sat in his small office aboard the space station, staring at his computer screen. Something wasn't right with the data flowing through the station's communication networks. "Computer, run the pattern analysis again," he said, rubbing his tired eyes. The screen lit up with streams of data. Most species would see random numbers and letters, but Taiwan had spent 15 years breaking codes on Earth. He knew what hidden messages looked like. A soft knock on his door made him look up. Lieutenant Jae-yun Park stood there, holding 2 cups of Earth-imported coffee. "You missed the morning briefing," she said, placing 1 cup on his desk. "Captain Kim was asking about you." Taiwan took a grateful sip of coffee. "Look at this," he said, pointing to his screen. "In the past week, there's been a 30% increase in encrypted messages between the outer colonies. Something big is happening, but nobody's talking about it openly." Jae-yun leaned closer to look at the data. "Have you told the council?" "I tried." Taiwan's face showed his frustration. "The Aetherian security chief said I was being paranoid, and that it was typical of our primitive species to see threats where none exist." Just then, Captain Do-hyun Kim walked in. Even after 3 months, he still wore his Earth uniform with perfect precision, refusing to adopt the flowing robes favored by most species on the station. "Officer Lee, Lieutenant Park," he nodded to them. "We have a situation. 3 outer colony worlds have gone dark in the past 12 hours. No communications, no traffic in or out." Taiwan stood up quickly. "Sir, that matches the pattern I've been seeing. These weren't random outages. Someone's been planning something." "The council is calling an emergency session," Do-hyun said. "They want all member species to attend, even probationary ones like us." In the Grand Council chamber, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered. The Aetherian High Council members floated on their platforms above everyone else, their silver skin reflecting the starlight from the transparent ceiling. "We are investigating the communication disruptions," the head counselor announced. "There is no cause for alarm. Our technology is the most advanced in known space. If there was any real threat, we would know about it." From her place in the crowd, Jae-yun watched Ambassador Kyung Mi-cho of the Nexari. The ambassador's skin had turned a dark, worried color. When their eyes met, Kyung Mi moved closer to the human delegation. "Your security officer's warnings," she whispered, her outer membrane rippling with concern. "My people have seen similar patterns. We're a small species, easy to ignore, but we remember what it's like to face threats alone." Before they could discuss more, new alerts flashed across the chamber's holographic displays. 2 more colonies had gone silent. The room erupted in worried voices. "Silence," the head counselor commanded. "We have dispatched our most advanced ships to investigate. The situation is under control." But To-won was already pulling up more data on his tablet. "Sir," he said quietly to Captain Kim, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures near the dark colonies. Whatever's out there, it's big, and it's not using any technology we've seen before." Do-hyun looked at his team, then at Ambassador Cho. The Nexari's skin had turned almost black with fear. He made a decision. "With respect," he said loudly, making heads turn throughout the chamber, "Earth requests permission to send our own ships to investigate." The head counselor looked down at him with familiar disdain. "You would send your primitive vessels when our advanced ships are already on their way." "Sometimes," Do-hyun said carefully, "a fresh perspective can see things others miss. And sometimes, those you call primitive are simply those who remember what it's like to fight for survival." The chamber fell silent. In that moment, no one knew they were witnessing the beginning of a change that would shake the galaxy. The time was coming when advanced technology alone wouldn't be enough. When the darkness came, they would need something else, something the humans still had, something the older species had forgotten long ago. The Aetherian defense fleet arrived at the first silent colony expecting to find a simple technical problem. Instead, they found destruction. The mighty ships, with their gleaming silver hulls and advanced weapons, hung in space before a world gone dark. "Send the report again," Captain Do-hyun Kim ordered, watching the footage from the Earth Embassy's command center. The images showed massive black ships unlike anything the Council had seen before. They moved like shadows between stars, appearing and disappearing without warning. "The Aetherian fleet is engaging the enemy," Jae-yun Park reported, her eyes fixed on the data streams. The human team watched as the Council's most powerful ships fired their advanced energy weapons. The black ships took direct hits without showing any damage. "Something's wrong," Taiwan Lee said, leaning forward. "Look at their attack pattern. It's not random." Before he could finish, 3 of the Aetherian ships exploded. The black ships had somehow gotten behind them, striking from multiple directions at once. "It's like watching old videos of submarine warfare," Do-hyun said quietly. "They're using the darkness of space itself as cover, just like submarines used ocean depths." The emergency alarms in the station began to sound. More colonies had gone silent. The enemy, now identified as the Void Collective, was attacking multiple worlds at once. The council chamber filled with panicked representatives from hundreds of species. "Our forces are engaging the enemy at all locations," the head counselor announced, but his silver skin had lost some of its shine. "Our technology is superior. We will prevail." Do-hyun watched the battle reports with growing concern. The Void Collective wasn't fighting like an advanced civilization. They were fighting like guerrilla forces, like people who knew they were outnumbered but refused to fight on their enemy's terms. "Sir," Jae-yun called out, "Ambassador Cho requests an urgent meeting." The Nexeri ambassador's skin was dark with fear when they met her. "The collective is not just destroying our worlds," she said. "They're taking people. Entire populations are vanishing." More reports flooded in. The Aetherian fleets were losing badly. Their advanced shields couldn't stop weapons that phased through them. Their sophisticated targeting systems couldn't lock onto ships that moved like ghosts. "I've seen this before," Do-hyun said, looking at the battle footage. "Not in space, but in Earth's history. When a smaller force faces a superior enemy, they don't fight fair. They use surprise, confusion, and fear." "What do you suggest?" Ambassador Cho asked, her skin shifting with hope. "The Council needs to change its thinking," Do-hyun replied. "All this advanced technology has made them forget the basics of warfare. The Void Collective is fighting like our ancestors did, striking from shadows, disappearing before the enemy can respond, targeting weaknesses instead of fighting head-on." In the main council chamber, another emergency session was underway. More worlds had gone dark. The proud Aetherian ships were being destroyed or forced to retreat. Fear filled the massive room like a physical presence. "Perhaps," the head counselor said, his voice less certain than before, "we should consider all options, all perspectives." He looked at the human delegation. For the first time, there was no contempt in his swirling eyes. There was only desperation. Do-hyun stood up. "Humanity faced threats like this throughout our history, not in space, but on land and sea. We learned the hard way that the most advanced weapons don't always win. Sometimes victory goes to those who remember the old ways of war." The chamber fell silent. The same aliens who had called humans primitive now looked at them with new eyes. They were starting to understand that the humans' savage past might hold the key to their survival. Outside the station's windows, the stars seemed darker than before. The Void Collective was coming, and they would need every bit of humanity's hard-earned wisdom to face what lay ahead. Admiral Sung-ho Kang stood before the Galactic Council, his Earth military uniform standing out among the flowing robes and shimmering suits of the alien representatives. The massive chamber was more crowded than ever, with species from across the galaxy gathering to hear Earth's proposal. The Void Collective succeeds because they fight like our ancestors did, Sung Ho explained, his voice clear and strong. They strike from hiding. They avoid direct battles. They use fear as a weapon. To defeat them, we must think like they do. The display behind him showed scenes from Earth's military history, ancient naval battles, guerrilla warfare tactics, and modern special operations filled the screen. Your ships are powerful, but they're predictable, he continued. The collective knows exactly how you'll respond to each attack. We need to change that. In the front row, Captain Do-hyun Kim and Lieutenant Jae-yun Park watched as the council members shifted uncomfortably. The head counselor's silver skin had dulled to a gray color, matching the mood in the room. What exactly are you proposing? The head counselor asked. Let us modify some of your ships, Sung Ho replied. We'll combine your advanced technology with Earth's battle tactics, and we need to train your crews in new ways of fighting. Jae-yun stepped forward. As the cultural specialist, she had spent months learning how to bridge the gap between human and alien thinking. The collective fights like raiders and pirates from Earth's past, she explained. We spent centuries learning to defend against such tactics. Let us teach you. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some species were outraged at the idea of learning warfare from primitives. Others, especially those who had lost worlds to the collective, were more willing to listen. Ambassador Kyung Mi-cho of the Nexari stood up, her skin rippling with determination. My people support this plan, she announced. We remember when we were considered primitive. Perhaps it is time for all of us to remember our roots. More reports of attacks came in as they debated. 3 more worlds had gone dark. The Void Collective was getting closer to the core systems. Finally, the head counselor raised his hands for silence. We have spent millennia becoming more advanced, more civilized, he said. But perhaps we have forgotten something important along the way. He turned to Admiral Kang. You have 1 month to prove your methods can work. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Earth's United Defense Force arrived at the station, bringing their best strategists and tactical experts. They worked day and night with council engineers to modify alien ships. Look at this, Taiwan said to Do-hyun, showing him the latest battle reports. The collective always attacks in the same pattern. First, communications go dark. Then they hit the orbital defenses. They're using our own technology against us. Then we change the pattern, Do-hyun replied. We set traps. We make them fight on our terms. In the station's main hangar, Admiral Kang watched as workers installed new systems on an Aetherian warship. The sleek vessel now carried equipment that would have looked primitive to the Council a month ago. Magnetic disruptors based on old submarine warfare, sensor scramblers inspired by Earth's electronic warfare systems, and new battle computers programmed with centuries of human military wisdom. Will it be enough? Jae-yun asked, standing beside him. It has to be, Sung Ho answered, watching the modifications continue. The collective thinks they're facing advanced aliens who've forgotten how to really fight. Instead, they're about to face advanced aliens who've remembered their warrior hearts, guided by humans who never forgot theirs. Above them, the first joint human-alien combat crews prepared for their mission. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had survived countless wars and challenges. Sometimes, the oldest wisdom was the best wisdom, even among the stars. Commander Haejun Ryu stood on the bridge of the modified Aetherian warship Morning Star. The vessel looked different now. Its once bright silver hull had been darkened to absorb light rather than reflect it. New weapons and systems filled its interior, mixing alien technology with human ingenuity. Status report, Haejun ordered, watching the tactical display. His mixed human-alien crew worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. After weeks of training, they had learned to think in new ways. 3 Void Collective ships detected near the Nexari colony, his sensor officer reported. They're following their usual pattern. Haejun nodded. He had studied Earth's naval history extensively, particularly the battles of Admiral Yi Sun-sin. The ancient Korean admiral had defeated larger forces by using the environment and careful planning. Now, Hejun would use those same principles in space. "Move us into position," he ordered. "Remember the plan. We are the bait." The Morning Star appeared to drift helplessly, looking like a damaged ship. Two other modified vessels hid in nearby asteroid fields, their new stealth systems making them nearly invisible. It was a trap, just like Admiral Yi had used centuries ago. "Void ships are approaching," the tactical officer announced. "They think we're easy prey." Hejun watched calmly as the black ships moved closer. They were acting exactly as expected, moving in to strike what seemed to be a wounded vessel, just like raiders and pirates had done throughout human history. "Wait for it," he said quietly. The bridge crew held their breath. The trap was about to spring. The void ships suddenly appeared around the Morning Star, their black hulls seeming to absorb all light. They expected to find a helpless target. Instead, they found a fully operational warship with its weapons ready. "Now," Hejun commanded. The Morning Star's new weapons activated. Instead of the usual energy beams, they fired special disruptors that forced the void ships to become fully visible. At the same time, the hidden ships emerged from the asteroid field, attacking from multiple directions. "Just like Admiral Yi's turtle ships," Hejun said with satisfaction. "The enemy cannot escape if they're surrounded." The battle was fierce but quick. Unable to use their stealth technology, caught in a carefully planned crossfire, the void ships didn't stand a chance. For the first time since the war began, the Council forces had won a clear victory. Back at the Galactic Council station, the news of the victory spread quickly. Captain Do-hyun Kim and Lieutenant Jae-yun Park watched as the tactical recordings played in the main chamber. The once skeptical council members now leaned forward with great interest. "Remarkable," the head counselor said, his silver skin glowing brighter than it had in weeks. "Using historical battle tactics in space combat. Hiding ships in natural cover. Setting an ambush. These are such simple strategies. Sometimes the simple solutions are the best ones." Jae-yun replied diplomatically. "Our ancestors learned these lessons through hard experience." More reports came in from other sectors. Two more task forces using the new human tactics had driven off void collective attacks. The modified ships and retrained crews were making a real difference. "We've made a good start," Admiral Sung-ho Kang said as he reviewed the battle data. "But the void collective will adapt. They'll learn from these defeats. Then we'll adapt too," Do-hyun responded. "That's another human trait they'll learn about soon enough." The victory was small compared to the size of the galaxy, but it meant everything. The council races were beginning to understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or power. It was experience, the wisdom earned through countless conflicts, the knowledge passed down through generations. The war was far from over, but something had changed. The aliens who had once looked down on humans as savages were starting to see them differently. Sometimes the best teachers were those who remembered the hardest lessons. Dr. Min Ayun walked through the newly created Joint Species Combat Laboratory on the Galactic Council station. Just 3 months ago, this space had been unused. Now it buzzed with activity as aliens and humans worked side by side to combine their knowledge. "The energy output is still unstable," an Aetherian scientist said, pointing to a complex diagram. "We cannot seem to control it properly." Minna studied the weapon design on the screen. "The problem isn't the power," she said. "It's the timing. Show me how it works again." The Aetherian pressed a button, and a hologram appeared. It showed their latest creation, a weapon that combined Aetherian energy technology with human tactical principles. The demonstration showed the weapon failing after 3 shots. "Look," Minna pointed to the energy flow patterns. "It's like an old machine gun that's firing too fast. It's overheating. We need to add cooling periods between shots, just like in our early firearms." Across the laboratory, Captain Do-hyun Kim watched as more joint teams worked on different projects. Some modified ship engines to run quieter, like old submarines. Others developed new shield systems based on ancient castle defenses. Each team combined advanced alien science with practical human experience. It's amazing how well they work together now, Lieutenant Jae-yun Park said, joining him. Remember how they wouldn't even look at us 3 months ago? Do-hyun nodded. Nothing brings people together like a common enemy, even if those people aren't all human. The latest battle reports showed their progress. The modified ships and weapons were working better than anyone had expected. The Void Collective was losing its advantage of surprise and fear, but everyone knew they would try something new soon. Captain, Taiwan Lee called from his security station. You need to see this. The tactical display showed a new pattern in the Void Collective's attacks. They were changing their strategy, becoming more aggressive. Instead of quick raids, they were now gathering larger forces. They're learning, Do-hyun said. Just as we learned from our history, they're learning from their defeats. In the main research area, Minna worked with scientists from 12 different species. They had put aside their pride and prejudice, focusing only on survival. Each brought their own knowledge and experience to the fight. If we combine your energy fields with our old radar principles, Minna explained to the group, we might be able to detect their ships even when they're hidden. Ambassador Kim Mi-cho entered the laboratory, her skin glowing with excitement. The Council has approved full sharing of all technical data, she announced. No more restrictions. No more holding back secrets. The news spread quickly through the station. Species that had guarded their technology for thousands of years were now sharing everything they knew. They had finally understood that survival was more important than pride. We're making real progress, Minna told Do-hyun later that day. But we need to work faster. The Void Collective is gathering a massive fleet. The next battle will be different. Do-hyun looked out at the stars through the station's window. Somewhere out there, the enemy was preparing their next move. But this time, they wouldn't be facing divided opponents. They would face the combined strength of many species, guided by humanity's hard-earned wisdom. We've taught them how to fight smarter, he said. Now we need to teach them how to win a war. The laboratory continued its work day and night. Time was running out, but with each passing hour, the alliance grew stronger. The species that had once looked down on humanity now eagerly learned from their primitive teachers. Sometimes the best future could only be built by understanding the past. The emergency alarms echoed through the Galactic Council station. The Void Collective had launched their largest attack yet, targeting the Council's capital world. Thousands of black ships appeared from the darkness between stars, moving toward the heart of galactic civilization. Admiral Sung-ho Kang stood in the Fleet Command Center, surrounded by representatives from every Council species. The tactical displays showed the massive enemy fleet approaching from multiple directions. They mean to end this war today, Sung-ho said, his voice steady despite the tension. So do we. The combined fleet of modified ships waited in defensive positions. Each vessel now carried weapons and systems that mixed alien technology with human military wisdom. The crews had trained together, learning to think in new ways. Young tactical officer Jin-woo Park studied the enemy formation carefully. Something about their approach seemed familiar. He had studied ancient battles during his military training on Earth. Admiral, Jin-woo said, stepping forward. Their formation. It reminds me of an old cavalry charge. They're trying to break through our center, just like armies did on Earth thousands of years ago. Sung-ho looked at the tactical display again. The young officer was right. The Void Collective had adapted to their recent defeats by copying ancient human tactics, but that gave the defenders an advantage. They knew how to counter such attacks. Send orders to all ships, Sung-ho commanded. Formation Delta, just like the old phalanx defense, but in 3 dimensions. The Council fleet moved into position. Stronger ships formed a shield wall in space, while faster vessels waited behind them like ancient archers. The trap was set. The Void Collective struck hard, their black ships crashing against the defensive line like waves against a cliff. The battle lit up space with energy weapons and explosions, but the defensive line held. Now, Sung Ho ordered. The faster ships darted through gaps in the defensive line, striking at the enemy's exposed flanks. Just as armies had done in ancient battles, they turned the enemy's strength against them. Captain Do Hyun Kim commanded one of the strike groups. His modified ship dove through the chaos of battle, targeting enemy command vessels. Lieutenant Jae Yun Park coordinated communications between the mixed species fleet, keeping them working together despite the confusion. Their formation is breaking, Jin Woo reported, watching the tactical display. The Void Collective ships began to scatter as their attack failed, but the young officer noticed something else. Admiral, a group of enemy ships is trying to slip past our defenses. They're heading for the capital. Sung Ho studied the situation quickly. They couldn't catch the enemy ships in time, but perhaps they didn't need to. Officer Park, he said, you've spotted their movement. What would our ancestors have done in this situation? Jin Woo thought for a moment. Then his eyes lit up. The ancient defenders of Korea sometimes let attackers pass through their lines on purpose. They would trap them in killing zones, using the terrain against them. And what terrain do we have in space? Jin Woo smiled as he understood. The planet's gravity well. We can use it like a mountain pass. Sung Ho gave the orders. As the enemy ships rushed toward the capital, hidden defenders waited in precise positions. When the black ships entered the planet's gravity field, they found themselves caught in a carefully planned crossfire. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The combined fleet, fighting with both advanced technology and ancient wisdom, steadily pushed back the enemy. The Void Collective's greatest attack had failed. We've won this battle, Sung Ho said as the last enemy ships fled or surrendered. But more importantly, we've shown what can happen when different species work together, combining the best of past and present. The capital was saved, and with it, the heart of galactic civilization. The council races had learned that true strength came not from technology alone, but from wisdom passed down through generations. Sometimes, the oldest lessons were the most valuable. 1 year after the great battle for the capital, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. The floating platforms that once kept species separate were gone. Now, representatives from all worlds sat together as equals. At the center of the chamber, newly promoted Admiral Do Hyun Kim stood before the assembled species. The last Void Collective forces surrendered yesterday, Do Hyun announced. The war is officially over. The chamber erupted in cheers. Species that once barely spoke to each other now celebrated together. Even the Etherian High Council members had come down from their platforms to join the celebration. Admiral Kim, the head counselor, said, his silver skin glowing with genuine warmth. Humanity has taught us a lesson we will never forget. We thought advancement meant leaving the past behind. We were wrong. Lieutenant Jae Yun Park, now the head of interspecies cultural relations, watched from nearby. She remembered how these same aliens had once looked down on humans as savages. Now they sought humanity's guidance and wisdom. The Council has approved the creation of the Multi-Species Strategic Defense Academy, the head counselor continued. Admiral Kim will serve as its first commander. The academy would be built in Earth's solar system. There, species from across the galaxy would learn to combine advanced technology with time-tested military wisdom. The first classes were already full of eager students from hundreds of worlds. In the station's research labs, Dr. Min Yoon worked with her alien colleagues on new projects. The spirit of cooperation that began during the war had grown stronger. Scientists who once guarded their knowledge now shared it freely, understanding that everyone grew stronger together. Your species has changed everything, Ambassador Kyung Ma-cho said to Jin Woo Park as they walked through the station's halls. The young tactical officer had received special recognition for his role in the final battle. We thought we were teaching you about civilization. Instead, you taught us what civilization truly means. The station itself had changed. The once pristine halls now showed signs of many species living and working together. Earth plants grew alongside alien vegetation in the gardens. The sound of different languages filled the air as people from across the galaxy worked side by side. Admiral Sung Ho Kang stood with Du Hyun in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Did you ever imagine this when we first arrived?" he asked. "Never," Du Hyun replied. "We came hoping to learn from advanced civilizations. Instead, we all learned from each other." In the station's new memorial hall, a special display honored those lost in the war, but it also told the story of how victory was achieved, not through technology alone, but through the combination of advanced science and ancient wisdom. Through the joining of many species' strengths and experiences, the head counselor approached Du Hyun and Jae-yun as the celebration continued. "We owe humanity a formal apology," he said. "We called you savages because you remembered your warrior past. We thought ourselves superior because we had forgotten ours. We were blind to the wisdom your species carried. The past shapes us," Jae-yun replied diplomatically, "but it doesn't have to define us. We can learn from it while still moving forward." As the celebration wound down, Du Hyun looked at the faces around him, human and alien together. The galaxy had changed. The species that had once looked down on humanity now stood beside them as equals and friends. They had learned that true civilization wasn't about forgetting the past, but about learning from it. The stars seemed brighter now, full of promise rather than threat. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, combining the wisdom of the past with the possibilities of the future.